artwork today. Isn't that amazing? Wow. So every month we get a new display of artwork. And it's nice to take a moment to just look at it. So this all came in yesterday, and there's a reception this afternoon about it, I believe. 3 to 5, yes. Great. So, I also want to tell you, I am very proud to serve a congregation that is certified by the UUA as a Green Sanctuary congregation. This means that you have done the work of education and change to be recognized as a congregation committed to environmental justice. And as your website says, we continue our journey as a Green Sanctuary congregation by continuing to educate ourselves and the public in integrating environmental justice concerns into our worship and introducing ever more green policies within our congregation. That's something to be proud of. Well, this worship service is part of that continuing effort. Your Green Sanctuary leader, Jeanette Gold, reached out to me about involving Rabbi Glenn Jacob in some way. And Rabbi Jacob is the executive director of the New York chapter of Interfaith Power and Light, which is a national organization. And its mission is to be faithful stewards of creation by responding to global warming through the promotion of energy conservation, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. And I also hope you remember a sermon I preached back in the fall about active hope. And I also did a workshop on it in early December that some of you went to. In these ways, I have been addressing the need to look at what I consider the biggest crisis that we are facing right now, worldwide. The crisis, of course, is climate change. It's happening, and it's going to get us all in the end if we don't do something fast. So I believe we need to look it in the face and deal with it, as scary as it is. And I'm glad that there are people working on this huge issue that affects us all. Not just human beings, but all beings are affected, and the entire earth. And so today I am happy to partner with one of those people here today. Let's welcome Rabbi Glenn Jacob.
10 pages, 5 hours. Are you ready? I got to choose today's text for you. And I'll start with why I didn't choose other ones. Why did I not use Genesis, the Garden of Eden? Doesn't that seem obvious when you talk about the climate? Well, no. 10,000 years ago, our climate stabilized. And it's the first time in our geological history, that is the long strands of history, that we had a stable climate. Not by coincidence, human civilization began about 10,000 years ago and began to grow and flourish and to develop until 10,000 years later, we all have iPhones. Our success as a human race is tied to a stabilized climate. So the truth is, we left the Garden of Eden in the biblical text. But the other truth is, this is the Garden of Eden in which we have been dwelling. We left it in one way, but in one critical element. This is our Eden. We are here. But the climate now is changing rapidly. It's changing on a human scale rather than a geological scale. And we now are witnesses to the changes. You know them. but I'll tell you them again anyways. Ultraviolet rays now cause skin cancer at alarming rates, which is why all of you in New York State now have to take vitamin D, because when you take your blood test with the doctor, he always says your vitamin D levels are low. The answer is because you don't go outside anymore without a hat. Particulate matter. It clogs our lungs and our mucous membranes. If you did not have allergies, you do now. If you had allergies, they no longer last seasonally, they last throughout the year. Our oceans are acidifying, and they're killing off the coral reefs. The oceans are warming, and they're sending marine life northward or southward, abandoning their ancient home territories. For those of you who are used to getting your fish from the river, or just from Long Island Sound, not anymore. The entire seafood industry for Long Island has collapsed. It's gone. It no longer exists. And now we are experiencing the predictions of the climate models on weather. We have more storms. We have more severe storms. We have, for those of you who came out this morning, violent swings of temperatures. The last below normal month we had in the United States was February 1985. The last average year we had for temperatures was 1990. And perhaps most disconcerting is a new study out, which you can actually read on my Facebook page for New York Interfaith Power and Light, is that our plant food, you know, all those things we eat every day, they have lost 50% of their nutritional value since 1950. Why? Because there's so much extra carbon in the air that the plants are using for food, but carbon in plants creates sugar, not nutritional cells that have vitamins and minerals in them. So the vitamins and minerals are being pushed out of our plants, and what you and I are eating is sugar. Oh, so what do? First, panic. I tell whenever I work with kids, it's the first thing I say, and they all scream for me. Do it again. And then they do that. Never lose the child inside you. Okay. So what do? Some of it's really obvious. You're a green congregation. What does green mean? It means reduce the watts that you use. Whether you are in this building, in an office building, or in your home. Stop burning so many watts. A watt not used is a watt not generated. We need to reclaim land. We need to let land that we don't need go fallow. If all of you were to reduce your beef consumption by 80%, we would free up half the land in the western United States. How important is that? The production of beef, the kids have already left, but this is the line I always do for the kids, including cow parts, accounts for 30% in climate change. That's a lot. Okay? That's all the land we need to feed cows. You can keep your chicken, you can keep your lamb, you can keep your goats. It's just the beef. You need to switch to clean, renewable energy. Solar on your roof, solar in the back. there are impediments. Wind energy, trust me, I'm trying to get them set on off the edge of Long Island Sound. Don't ask. But the newest initiative, which Governor Cuomo does not tout in his State of the State message this week because he doesn't want anyone to stop it, is what we call community solar, which is you have a piece of property, say church land, which doesn't need to be used in its entirety. And so as a project, the solar is set up on the property, but instead of just feeding the church building, it feeds the immediate neighborhood. This gets around a law. A law that says that when you put solar on your roof, you're not allowed to attach it to your own power. That solar is always attached to the grid and goes out from your house, never in. Community solar is the project within New York State, paid for in part by the state, that allows the power to go into buildings rather than out on the grid. They'd really like us churches and synagogues and mosques across the state to participate in this. It's not so cheap. And last, we need to phase out fossil fuels fast and furiously. So, why am I talking to you? Why did I come here today? Well, I came here today because of those verses that you read so well. You read them with real authority. Thank you. Keep practicing. All right. So, I'm also a scholar of Bible. I have a doctorate. Okay? So I choose these verses because I want to bring to you a message that often doesn't get transmitted. You see, these verses don't belong to Judaism. They belong to a religion that came 500 years, 700 years before Judaism existed. It was called the Israelite cult. And it's the root from which all the monotheisms come from. And in this particular set of verses, Leviticus 19, it's part of a code of law called the Holiness Code. Now, why did they need a holiness code in the middle of Leviticus? Have any of you read the book of Leviticus? How to slaughter animals. How to diagnose boils and abscesses in tissue. How to diagnose leprosy. What wonderful, lovely subjects. And in the middle of this very detailed text of ancient observations of biology comes this beautiful code that begins with, "You shall be holy, for I, Adonai, your God, am holy." You see, for the ancients, this was really gross too. And so here you have these young students studying to be priests, and they're asking, why am I doing this? And here comes this code. The code says, "You shall be holy," which in the ancient Israelite cult is a technical term. It doesn't mean holy as we use it in our language today. Holy in the ancient world meant to separate out what is important from everything else that's mundane. Think of it this way. 80% of your life, I am sorry to report, is common, ordinary, and mundane. Less than 20% of your life is spent doing that which is special, important, and spiritually demanding of you. That's holiness, according to the Israelite cult. So I bring you that theology as a message this morning. You see, I don't just talk to churches. I talk to politicians. We have science. it is not enough. We have technology. It is not enough. What we lack in the United States to act on climate change is political will. Right now, as we sit in this room, there have been spent $250 million on a campaign to discredit climate science and to retard climate legislation. The only counter, to date, the only counter we have is the voice of the moral imperative. The religious voice is the voice that is missing in Albany and in Washington, D.C. Now, if you don't believe me, look at your election in November. I don't know if you've met your new county executive, Mr. Rabbi. Okay? I met him 2 days after he was elected. He had already been given an award for Environmentalist of the Year here in New York State. And I went to his gala where he got the award. And we had a wonderful conversation. I think I scared him a little. But I will tell you, from your previous administration that was anti-climate legislation of all sorts, you now have a man who, before he ever thought of running for county executive, was already involved in what are you going to do about your waste? What are you going to do about your roads? What are you going to do about the energy needs of this county in the years to come? Will he be successful? I don't know. I'm not a prophet. Will he stay true to the task? This guy, I believe so. He's got a long track record. But that was your vote that put him into office. The immoral imperative worked here in Westchester. Now I need your help because it hasn't worked in Albany, and it sure as heck is not working yet in Washington, D.C. Many of our politicians, and I work on both sides of the aisle, I really don't care which party you're from. I want you to work on my issue. Okay? Most of the Republican members of the House of Representatives believe that climate change is real. And even our most vociferous critic, Lamar Smith, has admitted it's real and it's human caused. His response was, we'll invest in Arctic shipping. I know. They want to act. In New York State, only New York State, 6 of our 8 Republican delegates have joined the Climate Solutions Caucus in the House of Representatives. The caucus is a group that says climate change is real and climate change is man-made. We only have 2 who have not. Don't ask me why. That's because we speak up. The only reason they became members of the caucus is because people like you and me went to their offices and said, hey, Representative so-and-so, I am from this religious community, and I need you to pay attention to this issue. And do you know what we've heard from our representatives across the board? Where have you been? I thought you didn't care because you never spoke up. I've been waiting for someone to walk into my office and say, hey, my church, my synagogue, my mosque stands behind this issue. Will you speak out on it? And no one came. And I can now tell you that if you don't go, there will be a vacuum. And I know $250 million worth of blather that will fill that vacuum if you don't speak. So I ask you this day, take the lesson of holiness. Embrace holiness, become a holy vessel. Embrace your religious tradition and voice to save the planet. As we say in my tradition, Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Jacob. Yes, thank you. And let's sing once more. Let's turn the world around. Number 1074 in the Teal hymn book. Please rise in body or in spirit. And it's a somewhat difficult hymn, but the choir was rehearsing, so they'll help us.
Okay, so just remember there's a repeat in the first section. You're going to do the first 3 verses and then go on to the woe.